Good evening, everyone. Today we will learn about the next topic of the chapter life processes, that is respiration. So, what do you mean by respiration? Respiration is a process by which the food molecules gets broken down, and this due to this breaking down of the food particles, we get energy. And why do we need energy basically? As we have discussed earlier, energy is needed for doing some kind of life process or movements which are necessary for sustaining the life. And while sustaining the life, we need there are two important step processes for the energy, that is respiration. One is respiration and another one is nutrition. After nutrition, we get in the next place, that is respiration, and another circulatory system is also there, which is known as the circulation system, which we will study in the next chapters. So, moving on to the topic, what do you mean by respiration? Every organism respires, living organism respires, whether it be aerobic or anaerobic, which we will discuss later on. Respiration is a process of taking in some kind of air and exhaling it out. Through this respiration, the blood carries the oxygen or the carbon dioxide in that particular organism, and due to this respiration, circulation gets sustained. Respiration are of two types. One is aerobic, another one is anaerobic. What happens in aerobic organism? In aerobic organism, oxygen is needed. It is must. But in the case of anaerobic, oxygen is not required. For example, humans are an anaerobic organism. So if you are stuck in or locked in a room where there is no access to oxygen, you will feel nauseous, and within 5 to 6 minutes you will eventually die. So in case of aerobic or respiration or organisms, oxygen gets inhaled and we exhale out the carbon dioxide. Oxygen is must. Without oxygen, we cannot perform respiration. But in the case of humans, in some kind of muscles, anaerobic respiration also occurs, which we will discuss in a later part of the video. Now, coming to the chemical reaction of the aerobic organism, it is glucose plus oxygen is breaking down into carbon dioxide plus water plus energy. In case of aerobic respiration, the oxygen breaks down the glucose into carbon dioxide, water, which are the byproducts of the respiration, and energy is produced, which is the sole purpose of the performing respiration in the body. Now we receive energy in the form of ATP and ADP. What is ATP? ATP is adenosine triphosphate and ADP is adenosine diphosphate. What are this? These are the currency of the energy. Suppose you have 10 rupees, you can buy items worth of 10 rupees. Similarly, like this, if you have 5 ATP, then you can perform energy or some movements which are worth of 5 ATP or less than 5 ATP. It's a simple mathematical calculation. Now, in the case of anaerobic organism, the chemical reaction is glucose gets converted into ethanol plus carbon dioxide plus energy. As you can see in the chemical reaction, there is no involvement of oxygen and there is no water as a byproduct. But we are seeing some kind of changes. What are the changes? Here, ethanol is produced. As we know, ethanol is an alcohol. So, anaerobic respiration is also a type of chemical reaction which is used for preparing alcohol, such as in Organisms such as yeast perform anaerobic respiration, and due to this, with the help of yeast, we perform another process named as fermentation. With the help of fermentation, we produces alcohol. In many cultures, it is a custom that they produce alcohol. In tribal areas or in Tripura, basically, rice is fermented to produce alcohol. After fermentation, the alcohol that is being produced is very strong and it's considered as healthy as it is a natural byproduct. So these are the basic two types of division of the respiration, but there are several subtype of the respiration, mainly of the aerobic respiration. Anaerobic respiration can be subdivided into four types: obligate anaerobes, facultative anaerobes, micro aero tolerant, and aero tolerant. Another anaerobic respiration, there are four subclasses: obligate, facultative, microaerotolerant, and aerotolerant. So, what is in the case of obligate anaerobes? Obligate anaerobes are those organisms which performs respiration in the absence of oxygen. If even a minute quantity of the oxygen is present, then that particular organism may die because they absolutely require environment that do not have oxygen. What are the examples of obligate anaerobes? The example of obligate anaerobe is Clostridium botulinum, this organism considers oxygen to be toxic. As for example, humans, we consider carbon dioxide to be toxic. If you are locked in a room where carbon dioxide is in a majority than oxygen, you will eventually die. Same is the case with the obligate anaerobes. As we are obligate aerobes, they are obligate anaerobes. There is just a distinction between these two. There's two sides of a coin basically. What I mean by facultative anaerobes? Facultative anaerobes are those organisms which can survive in oxygen, which means the presence or absence of oxygen does not affect them very much. What are the examples of facultative anaerobes? It is E. coli. Moving on to the next, what is macroaerotolerant? Macroaerotolerant anaerobe are those organisms which require oxygen in a very minor quantity. Say, for example, if 99% of carbon dioxide is needed for sustaining respiration in macroaerotolerant, 1% of oxygen is required for the respiration of the macroaerotolerant. For the example of macroaerotolerant, Helicobacter. Moving on to the next, aerotolerant. Aerotolerant are organisms which is not affected by the presence or absence of oxygen. In fact, they tolerate even the high concentration of oxygen. Means if even in an environment, if the oxygen is prepared in a higher quantity, then such kind of organisms will not die, even in the presence or absence of that particular gaseous substance that is oxygen. Example of aerotolerant is lactobacillus, which is used to produce curd from milk. Moving on to the next, as I mentioned earlier, in humans there are particular muscles that performs anaerobic respiration. What happens, or what is a phenomenon, or what is a big deal of performing anaerobic respiration? Have you ever noticed that while you are running for approximately out of your stamina, or you are running for something which is very important, then after some time you will have muscle pain or pain in the calf muscles or any other side. Why does that happen? Because when you are running or doing any kind of strenuous activity, your body requires energy. But as the energy obtained from the respiration is limited, then the body feels the need of obtaining energy from other areas, and for that reason, the muscles perform anaerobic respiration. And due to this anaerobic respiration, lactic acid is deposited into the muscle, and this lactic acid is the sole reason of the pain in the muscles. As you have noticed that after doing any kind of strenuous activity, we require rest. After having rest, the muscle slowly releases the pain and you feel better. Why does that happens? Because with eventual, if you give time to the muscle, that eventually the lactic acid gets dissolved, and after the dissolution of the lactic acid, the muscle feels relaxed. Now moving on to the next topic of human respiratory system. Human respiratory system consists of many organs such as nostril, nasal cavity, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi, alveoli, lung, and a supportory organ named as diaphragm. Nostril has the two openings that are present in the nose through which we perform inhalation. Inhalation is a process of inhaling or taking in the air into our body, and exhalation is a process of excreting it out or exhaling it out, the air, excess air or the toxic air from the body. Nostril are just the basic two openings that are present in the nose, and nasal cavity is the area where inside the nose is the area where it's filled with hairs, and it performs some functions such as it makes the air moist. When we inhale the air, it is basically cold, or you can say in room temperature. But for sustaining in the human body, it needs to be in the body human temperature. And who does this work? Nasal cavity does this work. Nasal cavity traps any kind of dust that gets entered with the air. It has air. It has some hair-like structures which traps any dust if any dust are coming. So it even supports in the as a barrier to the skin. After the nasal cavity is the pharynx. What do you mean by pharynx? Pharynx is just a, you can say, the voice box, or the it is the area where the voice gets altered, or if you're talking, if you touch the hair, then it's an apple side or the Eden's apple that we say. This is basically the pharynx. It connects the nasal cavity to the larynx. Larynx is a tube or extended tube of the pharynx that connects the pharynx to the trachea. Now coming to the trachea. Trachea is an area in pharynx and larynx are the common organ for the human digestive system, or you can say the esophagus. As the air and the food gets traveled into the same pipe, they have some valves named as epiglottis. It flaps and the flaps open and closes upon the stimulus received by the nervous system, whether we are intaking food or intaking any air or we are performing just breathing. Trachea, this is a trachea. After entering into the trachea, it gets divided into two sections. It is these two sections are named as a bronchi, and these are the lungs. After into the bronchi gets again divided into sub branches. These red branches are known as bronchioles, and these blue dots are named as alveoli or alveolar sac. This alveolar sac is a main point where the exchange of the gases takes place. They have thin walls, larger surface area that helps in performing the respiration part. This alveolar sac is then connected to the circulatory system, which we will cover later on. So that's it for today. Let us have a quick recap of whatever we have studied today till now. We have learned about respiration, the types of respiration, aerobic and anaerobic. Anaerobic respiration has further divided into obligate anaerobe, facultative anaerobe, micro-aerotolerant anaerobe, and aerotolerant anaerobe. For the examples of obligate anaerobe, it is Clostridium botulinum. For facultative anaerobe, it is E. coli. For aerotolerant, it is lactobacillus, and for micro-aerotolerant, it is Helicobacter. After the types of respiration, we have studied about the chemical reaction of aerobic and anaerobic. For in the case of aerobic, oxygen is required in the respiration, whereas in the case of anaerobic, oxygen is not required. Instead, ethanol is produced and alcohol is produced. And from the anaerobic respiration, fermentation is a type of the process of the anaerobic respiration in yeast, which is regarded as a fermentation. With the help of fermentation, we produce alcohol, which is used in alcohol industry. And then we have studied about the lactic acid deposition in the muscle, where the muscle performs anaerobic respiration to supply extra energy to the body. And due to this lactic acid deposition, sense some we have a sensation of pain in the muscles or any kind of the part of the body. After covering that topic, we have entered in the human organ of the respiratory system. The organs that are connected to the respiration system are nostril, nasal cavity, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi, alveoli, and lung. Then we have the diaphragm. Diaphragm is a basic line of the sac of the muscles that separates the abdominal cavity with the upper part of the body. When we are breathing, you can see that the stomach gets fuller, and when you exhale out, the stomach gets like shrink down. Why that happens? It happens because of the diaphragm. Because the diaphragm lifts and bottoms down due to the respiration process. So, and that's it for today. Hope you liked the video.